بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. We welcome you all again. Jazakumullah khair for all of you who have committed to this daily series that we are going through. Some of our precious worship acts, how to get really prepared for our prayer, how to get well acquainted with the rulings of our ibadat, where they come handy, inshallah ta'ala, whether we are in our localities or we are on travel. So, inshallah ta'ala, today we will continue of what we started with yesterday about the wiping on shoes and on socks, as this subject pertains to many of us and it comes really important in our daily lives, as it's very easy to practice and to apply for accessibility, especially when we're at school, at work, and what have you. So, conditions of wiping. Just wanted to fix the slide a little bit for you of what yesterday, to go with the same way that we got you used to. So, things that have been agreed upon when it comes to conditions of wiping. For the footwear to be worn after ablution. So this is one thing that you can take for granted, that all the scholars agreed that you cannot uh, be privileged to wipe on your socks or on your shoes if you did not put it on a fresh wudu ablution. So we want to make sure that we always bring the word fresh, meaning that you just did your wudu and you put it on. It's not applicable if someone did wudu at Fajr and did not lose wudu and at 9 o'clock in the morning decided, okay, I'm going to put on my socks. That would not be applicable. So it has to be accompanied with somehow a fresh wudu. You know, you just did it now or 5 minutes ago or something, like where the skin is still wet. Or, somehow it's called that's a fresh wudu. Second, for the socks, shoes to be pure, free of impure things. So you want to be very careful if you are out in the public on a trip or on travel or in the park or what have you. And comes the time of salah and you want to apply the ruling of wiping. Before you do that, you want to make sure that you have not stepped on something that is impure, especially at parks and grass areas and what have you, where people maybe walk their dogs and their pets. So you want to make sure that your shoes from the bottom has not collected any type of impurity, because if that actually did happen, then you have to go through the process of what we talked about, of how to cleanse that first, how to purify the impurity that has stuck to the bottom of your shoes. Third, the ability to walk with the footwear as one normally does. So we talked a little bit, we touched base on this yesterday. We said that the socks should be and the shoes should be something that is considered to be something that is known traditionally to be somehow designed to be walked on. So you walk with it. You just use it to walk for like normal distances. So it is not, let's say, it is not a house slipper. It is not a bedroom slipper or a bathroom slipper. So it's not something that is really meant to be for very light use, but rather it's a heavy duty things that you use outside when you go outside. Okay, now conditions of wiping, but things that are not agreed upon. It's disagreed upon, and as you can see, it's a little bit more detailed because just to reference to you some of the school of thoughts that have differed. First, for the footwear to be free of holes, we touched base a little bit on that, but to go a little bit more in details, the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, they consider it to be impermissible even if a small hole is present, because foot is not fully covered. So the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, they want the sock or the shoes to be really intact, no holes in it, even if it's a small hole. But what do they define? They define it as long as it does, when someone, if you yourself look at your sock, your shoe, you don't see your skin. You don't see the skin of your foot. So that's your definition. If the hole is small enough in your sock that you yourself looking at it, you don't even see your own skin, then that's permissible. That's something that they did not, think it would come to invalidate that permissibility for you. However, the Maliki and Hanafi, they see it permissible, even if you have holes in the sock or in the shoes. If, only small holes, even if you still see your skin, but they consider it to be, to the best of your definition, it's considered to be small. And I know that varies, but again, you're your best judge. It's whatever you define small is really small. If it's really a big hole in your sock or in your shoes, then I would definitely refrain from wiping on it, because now you are not included in any of the opinions. So the Malik and Hanafi see the permissibility to it, if it's an okay small hole, but not something big that is really showing big part of your skin or big part of your foot. Second, for footwear to be made of leather. So first was for the footwear to be free of holes. So this is something that is still part of the conditions, remember, but we separated what's agreed upon and what's disagreed upon. Toward the last slide, uh, inshallah ta'ala, we will discuss text. So again, the Maliki. So for the the Maliki sees the footwear to be made of leather. Maliki must, they think that it should be leather. Shafi'i and Hanafi, they see that it must be a material that does not allow for penetration of water to the skin. So the Shafi and the Hanafi are a little bit more lenient. They say it doesn't have to be really leather, but it should be something, whatever that material is, that doesn't allow the water to penetrate, which is something similar, like a different material, but similar to leather. So they're kind of going along with the Maliki, but with a lesser condition. The Hanbali, however, and this is how, subhanallah, you see that where the flexibility of the different of opinion. Now you see that most of us nowadays, because of the lifestyle that we go through and the difficulties and the very inconvenient that we go through outside, if we were to really follow the only one opinion, it would be very difficult. This is where actually now you access the Hanbali opinion that says no material is required. The whole thing was given as a privilege, as a rukhsa, as a concession, as a relaxation to the general rule. So let's not put too much restrictions on it. Yes, Prophet ﷺ wiped on a leather shoe and a leather sock, but that's what he had available. That's what they were at that time. So it wasn't, the idea is not about the material, the idea about the concept. So whatever fits the concept is considered to be a footwear. It doesn't have to be the exact same material that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had at that time. So the Hanbalis do not strict on the material. As you can see, as long as the socks are thick and allow for extensive walking without tearing. So they just put, any material is fine, like the socks that we wear nowadays. It's fine as long as it is thick and you can walk on it with no problem. It just doesn't come off by itself. So these are just the side conditions to it. Now, specifications of socks and shoes. Now, this is kind of put all together for you, the agreed upon and the disagreed upon. Now, so you can have a gist of what is what is it that I'm following in order to be comfortable that I can really wipe. Okay, so first of all, it needs to be thick. That would answer the question that we had yesterday about, women's pantyhose or anything that is like um light in material. So that would not fit most of the requirements of what the scholars came to agree upon. Because one of the conditions, it should be thick, wearing them on wudu. So it has to be worn on wudu, fresh wudu, that is, covers the ankles. So it should cover the ankles. So these are all, again, between agreed and disagreed upon. But together in this class, we want to just follow what the majority has ruled because that puts you in a comfortable situation. So again, as we mentioned yesterday, those fancy socks and shoes that are more of stylish, but they don't fit the definition of a true sock or a true shoe. Yes, they're fulfilling some of it that you're walking out with it. They're thick enough and they're strong enough that you're walking with it, even though they're stylish, but they're not fulfilling all the conditions. So they're thick. Yes, they are thick. Are they intact? Yes, but they're not covering the ankle. So here, if you are able to cover all these conditions, then you are good to go, inshallah ta'ala, to wipe. Thick. Number two, wearing them on wudu. Number three is covers the ankles. Number four, the ability to continue walking in them. That you're walking fine, normal, minding your own business, your daily affairs, everything. They're not coming off. They're not so loose. You're not fixing them every 2 minutes. So that's something that would also be part of the definition of the conditions. Then number five, number one, two, three, four, five, free of big holes. So remember the agreement and disagreement of what defines holes. So in order to put them together, we put free of big holes because all the scholars now agree that it should not be an obvious big hole. So the condition of the scholars, in order for you, the problem that they have with holes is not because, oh, they don't think it's a good enough of a sock. No, of course not. The scholars don't look at it this way. The second there is a hole, it means that it's showing part of your foot, which is your skin. The second your skin is being exposed, then it puts you at an obligation to wash that part because it's a skin. Exactly like what we talked about the wudu, the water has to touch it. And that's the problem that they have because the skin is showing. So now, how are you going to wipe on it when the skin is big enough? The hole is big enough to show your skin. So, am I going to wipe or am I going to wash? You can't wipe and wash at the same time. That is agreed upon. You cannot have two rulings at the same time. You cannot say, well, I'm washing and wiping at the same time. I'm wiping most of my socks, but I'm washing the parts where the holes are. No. Again, remember that might not pretty much apply to us, but to many people around the globe, yes, because that's the only pair of socks that they have. Second, sometimes it does apply to us. Sometimes without really noticing, we put on socks that they do have actually holes in our heels, toward the heels and what have you, where you really tear them most of the time. The tear and wear is. So it does apply to us. Now, what if you're in public and you do have a hole? What are you going to do? You're going to define it as, is it small enough that it's really just like the sock has been just torn from that area? That's fine. If it's a big hole, then no, it's part of the conditions. So it should be free of big holes. It should be intact and have good grip on the feet without the need to tie them. So they should be intact, which apply to the way our shoes and our socks now. They're comfortably intact and tied to our body parts, but they're not meant to be tightened with a rope or with elastic or with a shoelace or what have you. They're not. So they're intact by themselves. So that actually, the way that we have it now comes to fulfill this condition with no problem, alhamdulillah. The last one is that they should not, or they don't allow penetration to skin. Penetration here, it means penetration of water. So that's part of the conditions about being thick, because they also went into this agreement. The scholars that allowed anything besides leather, they said thick. Okay, they said what, how do you define thick? Like my sock, is it thick? Yours, pantyhose and whatever. So they said if it's not transparent, if it's not really showing the skin, and if it doesn't penetrate water, so like our regular socks that we have, or shoes, when we wipe water on them with our hands, the traces of water is showing, but the water doesn't actually penetrate through all the way to our skin. So the water doesn't touch our skin, because the second water touches our skin, then it has to be a wash. It can't be a wipe. You cannot wipe. See, that's why they said it can't be pantyhose, something really light material of socks. These would not fulfill the conditions, because you're in between. Am I washing or am I wiping? It can't be both. That's why it has to be either a wash or it has to be a wipe. A wipe means that if I put traces of water on it, it's just touching the surface, and the traces of water is showing only on the top surface of my sock, but it's not penetrating through the material to touch my skin. So that inshallah ta'ala, I would say would end today's bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So what I will do bi'idhnillah today, besides taking questions, tomorrow I will, Allahu alam, because this session is very important. I want maybe to kind of review most of I will review most of the tayammum rulings and the wiping rulings together, put them together, because these were too detailed, many rulings, many disagreement among them. I want to kind of put them together for you and just refresh your memory with it, so you can have that rulings grasped well before we actually go into a completely different chapter. Because after that, we're going to go into a different chapter uh, of purity and tahara, which will after lead us to our salah session. So we will go to the prerequisites of salah and the preconditions of salah, and then of when the salah actually starts, and the rulings before and during salah, and also after salah. And that would inshallah pretty much finishes most of our series, all the series of salah. But of course that would take a long time. So inshallah, if you're able to keep committing to the sessions, that would be great, because as you lose few sessions and you come back, it's going to be very difficult for you to pick up on. But again, if you have to leave, you have to leave. If you have to miss some of the sessions, you have to miss. Something is always better than nothing, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. So let's see, inshallah. Um, so inshallah, with the session, I think that would answer the question that I have asked you to wait on yesterday about the pantyhose. So I think that is answered. So it means that we cannot wipe on pantyhose, because first of all, it's transparent, so it's showing. Uh, some people say no, it doesn't actually show, but it does really show. The It's not really covering the skin, but it's covering enough where yes, it's not showing the actual maybe true skin color of the person, but it's still transparent. So that's one condition that is not fulfilled. Second, it's not thick enough. It allows penetration of water, because it's so light that if you put on it when you wipe with water, it does allow the water to penetrate through. So because of these two conditions missing, it would not allow that person to do it on pantyhose. Okay, so that is the question from yesterday. Let's see if we have more questions today on. Okay, if you have any question today, if not, you can do it, of course, today. But if not, then by all means, I want you to have all your questions ready that pertains to anything about tayammum. You know what? Let's do it this way. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll do what we will do. We'll just make it a question and answer session that would pertain mainly to what we covered before, including tayammum and wiping, which is the last two sessions of detailed rulings, but anything else that we covered. So it's going to be all question and answer that would cover all the material that we covered it. And it will also allow you to ask any questions that pertains to siyam, to fasting. Because I know now we are in Ramadan, and I know some of you have some questions. So we can inshallah pick up some, because I promised you before to have also some time for the fasting. If we don't have enough questions tomorrow, what I will do, I will cover questions for you, like frequent questions that I usually receive. So to enlighten you on some of the rulings of fasting tomorrow. But pertaining to the materials today, I will leave it, inshallah ta'ala, whatever questions that you have. So you can quickly, as a homework take today, is to review all the slides, see what questions come to your mind, what clarifications that you want, so we can put a closure on this chapter, because we're going to enter into more new chapters of tahara and purity. And from that, we will end all the purification slides altogether. Before we go into the prerequisites of Salah, we are going to take our test, inshallah ta'ala. Because from that point on, we're going to go into a completely different subject, and that relates completely to Salah. So it has nothing to do with purification. It has nothing to do with wiping. It has nothing to do with tayammum. It has nothing to do with the purification process, but it must have one prerequisite, and that is tahara, the wudu and what have you. Without it, salah is not accepted. So the whole thing is covered, but we will not have to go back to any related slide afterwards. All we need to do in order to go into the prerequisites of salah is to only say, well, a person has to have tahara on, from the major impurity and from the minor, both. So if they needed to have ghusl, they must have ghusl. And of course, they have to have wudu along with it. That's the only way that they can actually enter any state of salah, whether it's obligatory or optional. And that is agreed upon. You cannot enter the state of salah unless, like the question came, no water available, no tayammum available, absolutely knocked every door, there is nothing available, then that's the only time that a person can enter in a state of salah without. And remember that we talked about a minority opinion that actually said, no, that salah actually drops, because no water, no tayammum, no prerequisite being able, so both drops, the prerequisite and the requirement itself, which is salah, so both drops. But that's, of course, a very minority opinion, inshallah. طيب, with that, inshallah, I will let you go today, and inshallah tomorrow we will wrap up on all the material that we discussed with your questions and with other questions pertains to Siyam, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair wa barakallah fikum, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with a great day and a great Siyam and fasting, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fast and our qiyam and our siyam and our dua and our salah. And also may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept sincerely our effort and striving hard to seek knowledge, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves his knowledgeable servants way more than those who just take the deen as a tradition and they're not putting any effort to learn any of the rulings of their faith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you see this in this life and in the hereafter. Allahumma ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum.